All right, week 7, first and Stix. We are back. Sorry for being out last week. Had a lot of things going on last week, but we are back this week on a Saturday. Going to fly through this slate here and maybe build a cash game lineup like we usually have done. But thank you all for tuning in. I greatly appreciate it. Here's the NFL DFS week 7 walkthrough here. We are going to go to the first game at New York. It's the Carolina Panthers at the New York Jets, total of 41.5. Go through the injury diagnosis here, and let's see what we got. I'm going to fling this over for my notes. For the Panthers, we have edge rusher Patrick Jones. He is a very good run stopper. He is out. Very solid left guard. Damian Lewis is likely out, but they do get their center, Austin Corbett, back, who is a very good run blocker. And then Jalen Coker is going to be back. For the Jets, it looks relatively clean. I believe Michael Carter and Garrett Wilson are both out. Michael Carter, a DB for the Jets. So pretty gross there. In terms of weather, I think this is one of the games that is relatively clean, maybe just windy. There's going to be a lot of wind in the Midwest and the East side of the United States tomorrow, so keep an eye on that. But let's go into ownership here. Select these two games. I doubt anybody's playing any of these quarterbacks. Going into the week, I was very, very interested in the 1%. Justin Fields at 5,700, you kind of play him like he is a running back. You know his one helpful target this week is going to be Mason Taylor. But we will go into the coverage real quick. For the Panthers, they played pretty much all zone, a ton of cover 3. They do not blitz, and they do not pressure opposing quarterbacks. Obviously, for the Jets, this would be a lot of more uptick to a massive baseline for Garrett Wilson, but he is not playing. So right now, the 80 medal has a massive expected target increase for Mason Taylor against cover 3 and Breece Hall against the zone without the blitz. So a lot of checkdowns in the flats there for Breece Hall. There's going to be a ton of ownership on Breece Hall, I'm sure, there. And on the Jets side of defense there, they play a lot of cover 1 and cover 2. So very high man coverage rate, a decent blitz rate. But even with that blitz, they do not pressure opposing quarterbacks a ton. Despite shadow coverage from Sauce Gardner, I think this is a great spot for Ted McMillan. I bet his receiving prop over 52.5 early in the week. I think that's now like 40 or 55 or 56 even at some books. But this is a massive expected target increase to Ted McMillan against the cover 1. This is a boost to the tight ends. I guess Jatavion Sanders is back this week, and the RBs against the cover 2, which is a baseline expected target share for Ted McMillan. It's Ted versus the blitz, and it's Ted when there's not many quarterback pressures there. So a really good spot for Ted. The issue is, do we think this game goes back and forth with the Jets having little to no one on offense? Probably not, but a GPP interest for me is definitely Ted McMillan. Still relatively interested in Justin Fields, maybe in the early only slate. For the running back situation, obviously Chuba Hubbard's coming back a little bit. I can't imagine they take the ball out of Rico's hands right now, kind of ride the hot hand there. 5% ownership, probably not paying $6,800 for Rico Dowdle. Chuba's probably going to play a little bit on third down, but Breece Hall is pretty much the whole offense for the Jets. A ton of ownership there, 30% projected ownership at the DFS Army Domination Station. That's pretty wild. I don't love Breece in this spot. I don't hate it. The Panthers have been gashed on the run pretty much the last 4 years. I don't see that necessarily stopping tomorrow. But I feel like the Panthers can sell out against a run, put a spy on Justin Fields, and pretty much keep the ball in front of them all day long. So Breece is probably a great cash game play. We're going to skip the next game when we get there. That's going to be the windy game in Cleveland. But Judkins is going to be a staple play for me in cash. I think Breece at 30% is probably a cash game play. So let's put Breece, Hall, and Judkins in the cash game lineup. I think we're going to play them both regardless of ownership. I'm sure Judkins has to be pretty popular, but yeah, 7% Ted McMillan. I'll take the under on that. I'm sure he's going to be sub 5, especially at the 6,400 price point. He did get in the box 2 times last week for the first time all year. He was chalk last week. I was not on it. I chose – who did I choose over him? Brian Thomas Jr. We talked about it in Discord. So Brian Thomas Jr. did outscore him, but did not get in the box twice like Ted did. But I think Ted only had 2 or 3 catches and obviously 2 touchdowns and like 30-something yards. I think this is a good spot for him, but again, with the Jets not being able to push the pace, probably just going to be a prop play for me and maybe a bring back in a Justin Fields, Mason Taylor early only stack, fading Breece Hall in GPPs on that early only slate. It's probably where I'm going. Mason Taylor, great spot here, 3,400. Talented rookie. He's just getting fed recently. I think both defenses are in play. The Panthers are certainly in play. Justin Fields just absolutely sucked last week against a very healthy Pittsburgh Steelers defense, but you saw what Joe Flacco just did on Thursday Night Football. But yeah, Panthers D can get a lot of sacks here. Jets D, it's Bryce Young. I would not be afraid, even with Michael Carter out. The Jets defense just has pretty much sucked all year. So yeah, moving on. We're going to skip that game. Let's just check Harold Fannin ownership because David Njoku is out. For the Dolphins, my notes here are decently clean. Jack Conklin, I'm assuming, is going to be out, but he was limited on Friday. I don't think that's going to pass protocol. That would be even better for the Judkins stuff. But if you want to give yourself a reason to maybe fade Judkins, Jack Conklin is not going to be playing, and Njoku's out. So let's see what's going on. Let's put both teams in here because I'm not going to go through coverages because I do not give a shit about this game with 40-mile-an-hour winds. Yeah, no ownership in the quarterbacks. Achane, 15%. I'm not paying 8,100 for Devon Achane there. Judkins, 25. Yeah, so Judkins is going to be the cash game. I love this spot for him, but so does the field. Not interested in that. Harold Fannin, 5%. If it wasn't crazy windy, I think Fannon's a damn near lock play. If you're not playing Judkins, I don't think you want to go double Browns here. But even then, his ADOT's not too far or not too long. So like the wind's not going to affect a lot of targets to Harold Fannin, but just a gross game environment. A total of 36, one of the lowest, if not the lowest we've seen all season. So not a ton of love there. Another game moving on to Tennessee. That is on the, I guess, Midwest part of the United States, and that has to have a lot of wind looking at. Yeah. So we'll go to Kevin Roth on a different screen here. Yeah, line of rain moves through pregame, sustained 15 to 20 gusts around 30 miles an hour. So yeah, it's going to be gross, but not miserable compared to some of the slate. Definitely like 40 to 50 mile an hour gusts in Cleveland, it says. So that's gross. Great spot for Stephon Diggs on paper. I really, really, really wanted to play him, but probably not going to get there just because I don't see the Titans keeping this game competitive. At the injury front for the Patriots, Harold Landry, who was not practicing most of the week, was a full participant on Friday. So I think the Patriots defense is going to be very healthy, definitely in play at 3,400. For the Titans, we got a laundry list here. Calvin Ridley out. Right guard Blake Hance out. Quality edge rusher Draymond Jones and Arden Key are both out. And another very good run stopper, James Lynch, is highly questionable, but they should be getting T'Vondre Sweat back. So I don't know. That's still just way too many run stoppers there out for the Titans. I have no interest in the Titans offense. For the Patriots, they're going against a Titans team that pretty much plays all zone. They have a good bit of cover four, so kind of just try to keep it in front of them, bend, don't break style defense. Do not blitz, and they do not pressure the quarterback. So this should be a very good passing game for the running backs for the Patriots, and basically baseline or higher for Stephon Diggs. So I do like the situation for Stephon Diggs. Just I'm not going to play him if the Titans aren't going to score. This has to be a breakout game for TreVeyon Henderson. I say this, I mean, the whole industry says it every other week, but with the cover four and no blitz, there's a lot of checkdowns to be had here. TreVeyon Henderson is the better pass catching back. If it's going to be a little bit wet, like, I don't know, can Vrabel give Ramondre Stevenson the football knowing he's likely going to fumble it? I like TreVeyon Henderson a ton here in GPPs, but it is very risky at 5,100. Let's see what the ownership is. Not playing either of these quarterbacks, though. Drake May has been a world beater all year long. 6,300, finally a salary that makes sense, but that is still relatively cheap for the upside he possesses because their running game does kind of suck right now, and he can get it done with his legs and the arm. So even I don't think he necessarily needs a competitive game from the Titans to go back and forth at 6,300, but I'm not on Drake May personally this week. So let's see here. Stevenson, 5%, Henderson, 2%. I like TreVeyon here a lot. I just don't know if I have the balls to play him in high stakes. But yeah, no cash game plays for me here. Stephon Diggs, 10%. I'll take the under on that. I think the weather's going to scare most people away from these games. Hunter Henry, Chigga, they're on my notes on this other tab here of like honorable mention. If I was a 150 max player this week, I'd be interested in them, but just other good spots. I'm not really there. So Patriots defense, 3,400, absolutely play them. Moving on. The Raiders have a team total of 16.5. Yikes. The Chiefs have a team total of 29. So that has to be the largest on the slate. Yeah, by a point over the Cowboys. A lot you can do here. The Raiders, I think the only guy out for them of note is Brock Bowers. For the Chiefs, obviously, Rashee Rice is back, and left tackle, who's a very good pass blocker, Josh Simmons, is out. Not a ton of downgrades there. We'll go into the Chiefs defense. They mix it up a ton. Spags does a very good job. He's very hard to handicap against, at least in my personal opinion. I've always had a hard time picking out like who is going to be the guy against the Chiefs. They blitz a ton and a lot of too high safeties. For the Raiders, all zone, pretty much all cover 3, a little bit of cover 4 in there, a mid-tier rate of blitz, and a good job pressuring opposing quarterbacks. So upticks in expected target share here from the 80 miles. So I see a solid uptick for the tight ends, which is obviously going to be Michael Mayer this week against the 2 high safeties that we'll see a lot for the Chiefs. And a big boost to the tight ends and Jacoby Myers versus the blitz. Jacoby Myers playing the X there, but does go into the slot a good bit. Not really interested in anybody besides Michael Mayer. I mean, what are they, an 11-point dog? 12.5-point dog now. So, yeah, Jacoby Myers, Michael Mayer, I guess Trey Tucker, like good game script for the passing game, but I'm not into it. I'm not really I just don't want exposure to the Raiders offense, or I'm not going to force it at least. If they're very cheap and your lineup calls for one Raider and they're just sitting there, not bad if they're a pass catcher. For the Chiefs, against the pretty much all cover 3 there, it's historically a fantastic spot for the slot, which is Rashee Rice, who's coming back, and the prop market absolutely loves him. I think he's going to be a cash game staple. Let's see what his ownership is. Not crazy in love with Mahomes, but probably the safest quarterback on this slate. Finally priced up in the 7K range where he belongs. Not really in the Genty. I don't hate Isaiah Pacheco. A team total of 29, 12.5-point favorite. We have everybody in the industry always says you play double-digit home favorite running backs. Isaiah Pacheco is getting more workload every single week. I think the snap share was greater than 75% last week. I don't understand why no one wants to play Pacheco. If I had to choose, Travion Henderson was 5,100. I think my heart says Travion, but just data and common sense would say just play the guy that doesn't have much competition behind him, which is Isaiah Pacheco. The highest implied team total. I think it will not be surprising if Pacheco scores twice, gets to roughly 85 rushing yards, 2 or 3 catches, and is a fantastic value at 5K, and no one plays him. As I'm doing this show, I'm very interested in Pacheco. In GPPs, Rashee Rice, 26%. No one's playing a pass catcher for the Raiders, at least on the wide receiver side of things. Travis Kelce's fair at 4,700. I do have an upgrade to Travis Kelce against the blitz. I talked about the Raiders have been blitzing a good bit this season, and then Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice historically versus the pressure. So very low ownership on Michael Mayer. Not opposed to that. I feel like, we're not going Breece Hall and Mason Taylor. We're not going double jet and cash. So let's go Rashee Rice here. He's cheap. He's going to be very popular. On paper, it's a great spot. I don't love it in tournaments. First game back. Seems a little sketchy. But he's 5,600. Everybody's going to play him. We can afford that in cash. Moving on. Saints at the Bears in Chicago. I am about 15 miles west of the stadium. It is insanely windy in the forecast for tomorrow. Let's double check that with Mr. Roth. Looks like all the rain is clear before kickoff. Winds are the issue. Sustained around 20, gusts around 30. Terrible day to golf. So do not get out and play golf if you're near the Chicago area tomorrow, unless you hit those low little stingers like Tiger and like to play in the wind. You're a psycho, in my opinion. But Caleb, 11%. I'm assuming that ownership is going to go down, but he can get it done with his legs too. And no one going to play Spencer Rattler. Let's check the injury report here for the Saints. My notes here say pretty clean and get an okay pass rusher back in John Ridgeway from the IR. It sounds like he's going to go. I don't think that scares me at all. Dennis Allen, obviously the defensive coordinator for the Bears, playing the Saints here. I like this spot for the Bears defense. Let's get into that. But for the Bears, Grady Jarrett did practice on Friday. Would be interesting to have him back. That is very good for their defense. And I believe they activated. Did they activate? Let's see. Where are my notes? I'm sorry. Yeah, Austin Booker should be good to go. Let's see. Why did I miss that? Austin Booker is out. So they activated him. He is not going to play. So not a terrible spot. Keep an eye on Grady Jarrett. If Grady Jarrett's out and Booker's out again, obviously not a terrible spot for Alvin Kamara. I did bet Alvin Kamara over 3.5 receptions at plus 110 early in the week. If you're in the legal markets and could get a price similar to that, I'm not opposed. Let's go into the defensive coverage here for the Bears. They play a lot of man coverage, a lot of too high safety. For the Saints, that is a baseline target projection, which is still very high, like 26% for Chris Olave, and a big boost to Rashid Shaheed when the Bears play man. A very big boost to Alvin Kamara versus the too high. That is a big reason. That and the weather is why I thought the market was off with 3.5 catches for Alvin Kamara. I think I talked about it in the week 1 show. I do not like the check down situation for Alvin Kamara or any running back that is head by Kellen Moore. We've seen it year in, year out. Kellen Moore came to San Diego, and when everybody was drafting Austin Eckler in the first round, Kellen Moore kind of took away most of his work in the passing game, and that was all the value that the fantasy people wanted in Austin Eckler. So I don't really like betting on Kellen Moore running backs to have, very active games in the pass game. But with this weather and this coverage, I think that's a good spot for Alvin Kamara at plus money. If it's still plus 110, plus 115, plus 120, obviously anything longer than plus 110, 3.5 catches for Kamara, I would definitely sign off on it. Not a hammer play by any means. For the Saints, they play pretty much all zone, a lot of cover 3, a little bit of cover 4, no blitz, and surprisingly a good pressure rate against opposing quarterbacks. It is going to be a boost to the tight ends, which is pretty much pin the tail on the donkey with Cole Kmet and Colson Loveland, so I will definitely not touch either of them. And then DeAndre Swift versus the cover 3. And the Saints also show a good bit of cover 4. That is check down city to DeAndre Swift. Again, in the wind, relatively ugly game. I think Swift is very active in the passing game, but it's not going to be the easiest defense to run on. So I don't mind DeAndre Swift. Not really interested in Caleb Williams. I figured DeAndre Swift would be closer to 20% owned, but when Judkins and Breece Hall are drowning out that much ownership, it makes sense that Swift will be a little under. Chris Olave, 20%. Yeah. I mean, it's baseline, 5,400. I do like it. I would love to play Rome Odunze. I love the outside cornerbacks, and especially the size advantage that Rome has on these guys, but I am going to be a whore to the weather report and just place my chips elsewhere. Not really interested in any pass catcher at the receiver position and not touching a tight end. I'm fucking done with Juwan Johnson. He started so hot. He's just slow. He looks old out there. I'm not worried about Taysom Hill, but yeah, it's gross. So Bears defense, 3%. I like them. I would love to just put them in the cash game, but like Panthers D, we're going to do defense last on this build. So right now we got Breece Hall, Quinshon Judkins, Rashee Rice. Not adding anybody to the cash game from the Bears Saints game at this time. Moving on to the Dome in Minnesota, hosting the Eagles. Total of 44, pretty much a pick 'em. Philly 2-point favorite on the road. I'm not going to say revenge narrative shit, but let's go to Vikings injury report. Edge rusher and decent run stopper Andrew Van Ginkel is out. Other than that, pretty clean. Eagles clean. So both teams relatively healthy coming off the bye, at least for Minnesota. Defensive-wise, obviously, for Minnesota, Flores is going to bring a ton of blitz, a ton of QB pressures, and they have the number 1 rate for 2 high safeties. For the Eagles, we see a good mix of everything, tough defense to kind of handicap against as well. Good bit of blitz and not a ton of QB pressure. So for the Eagles against that high blitz rate and 2 high safeties, I have a boost to Goddard and Saquon versus the 2 high. Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown versus the blitz, and Saquon and A.J. Brown when pressured. So good spot for A.J. Brown. I really do like Saquon in GPPs. 7,700, I think, and no one's going to play him. No one's going to play these quarterbacks. We're obviously not playing Carson Wentz. But I don't hate that. I don't know. I don't hate Carson Wentz. If I'm a 150 player, I'm not this week. Jalen Hurts, 6,700. Decent price. Not really interested in Mason, but 10% Saquon under 8K. Should get a lot of check down work. Minnesota's kind of a run funnel. I don't hate it. Justin Jefferson. Yeah, let's go into that coverage. So the Vikings against I get, if I had to guess, the Eagles play a lot of cover 1, cover 3, cover 4, pretty much the average NFL rates for those. Massive boost to Justin Jefferson against any man coverage. So the cover 1 there, boost to Addison and Hawkinson when we see the 2 high safety in the cover 2. Justin Jefferson and Addison versus cover 4, and Jefferson versus the blitz. So not a home run spot for Justin Jefferson, but this is a big type of game. I like big players in that. So I do like Justin Jefferson. I do like A.J. Brown at 5,800. Damn, I feel like everybody – I didn't think anybody would play A.J. Brown. So 13% A.J. Brown. I thought he'd be like in the 5% range. So I was going to be very interested for him in GPPs. Still am, but not nearly as much. Dallas Goedert. 4,500 is kind of a whatever price in DraftKings tight end these days. 4% is pretty good there. Not really interested in any defense here, and I doubt their ownership's that high. Yeah, let's move on. Afternoon slate already. All right, Giants 16.75 point implied team total going to Denver. That's rough. That's the tied for the second lowest, right? Yeah. Okay. We got the fucking Raiders 16.5. That's gross. All right. Injury report for the Giants. Darius Slayton's out. Center John Michael Smith is out. Edge rusher and very good run stopper Chauncey Golston out. And for the Broncos, pretty clean. Only pass rusher Jonah Ellis. I believe he's a defensive end, kind of mixed in at outside linebacker a little bit. They're pretty clean elsewhere. Coverage-wise, the Giants have the second highest man coverage rate in the NFL. I don't understand why they do that. They don't really have the personnel to do that. So a lot of cover 1, single high safety, decent blitz. Do not do a good job pressuring opposing quarterbacks. For the Broncos, heavy man coverage, good blitz rate, and the number 1 QB pressure rate in the NFL. Good luck, Jackson Dart. Without Slayton, I don't really know how to handicap the Giants. Because obviously no Slayton, no Neighbors. I would assume this is an okay spot for Wan'Dale Robinson on the inside, getting away from Patrick Surtain. My notes here say not interested in the Giants at all. So for the Broncos, it's a massive boost to Courtland Sutton and Troy Franklin on the outside versus man. Anytime in the single high safety, that's deep balls to Courtland Sutton. And then Sutton and Marvin Mims against the blitz. So Sutton checks every single box for me. Issue there is, do we want to play that much Sutton when the Giants have 16 point implied team total? Let's see the ownership. I really did like Bo Nix a lot going in this week, but I don't think Jackson Dart is going to have that fun of a time up in the elevation against a healthy Broncos defense. Really good spot for J.K. Dobbins, sub 10%. I think that's maybe where we want to go. The books love his touchdown equity there. Not really interested in Cam Scattaboo for 6,500. Get fucked at that price. And probably not a massive game script for R.J. Harvey. I could see him getting a lot of work if the Broncos go up early. I think this is a really good spot for Courtland Sutton. We talked about it. He checked every single box. 7% ownership. I don't see them pushing the pace a ton, but I like it. Let's see what else we got. Broncos defense is the chalk at 3,500. I don't think people are going to pay 3,500, especially when we see the Bears and the Browns in these win games probably go with those home team defenses. I kind of want to put Sutton in cash games. Let's do it for the time being. I do think he has a very high floor. The ceiling is obviously capped on what the Giants do on offense. If you think the Giants can score, good shit. Then play a lot of Sutton in tournaments. Another game with a very high total. 80 Mile thinks this is like right around the 44, so I would lean on the under. I just don't personally like betting unders. My history betting unders is not great, and I just don't like watching a game and like getting pissed when they score a touchdown. So that's no way to live, but I know sharp bettors do like unders a ton, so I'm not opposed. Herbie, 10% ownership. I kind of like Herbie in cash. Obviously, a total of 54s here. Maybe we go Dak. I don't know. Or we get CD, Herbie. I don't know. Let's see how this unfolds. For the Chargers, Joe Alt is likely out. Quentin Johnson is back. For the Colts, Josh Downs is out. Ashton Dolan is out. I don't think that really matters a ton. Kenny Moore on the inside, nickel corner there. His stud is back. Charvarius Ward still out again. If you have not seen the pregame video of Charvarius Ward getting his concussion last week in walkthroughs, or I guess just warm-ups, it is wild. He gets his ass lit up. It is very scary. He kind of just goes out cold. So obviously keep your head on a swivel out there. If you're an NFL player listening to the show, I doubt you are, but you never know. But yeah, you can even get hurt in walkthroughs. So very interesting stuff there. Going on a rant that means nothing. Let's go into the coverage. Chargers play all zone, no blitz. They do a good job of getting home, which is a 4-man pass rush, pressuring the quarterback. Colts play a good mix of everything. So obviously Lou's doing a fantastic job with that defense. They are probably one of the most overperforming teams in terms of Vegas expectations preseason. So the Colts are winning a lot of games. They are staying in games even when they lose. The defense playing awesome. So good blitz right there, low pressure. So here's what I got for the Colts. A big boost to Tyler Warren against the zone. Pretty much all the Chargers plays, cover 3 and cover 4. And then JT dump-offs when there's no pressure. When there is pressure with no blitz. So I don't hate this spot for Jonathan Taylor, but 8,800 is a steep price to pay, 22% ownership. So that's why no one's going to Swift. They're playing one or if not both of these two, and a lot of Jonathan Taylor apparently is what the domination station shows. Kamani Vidal, 15%. I'm out on that. I don't think the Chargers will be able to run the ball very much here. I think this is a pass type of funnel on the outside for the Chargers. This is a very good coverage boost to Keenan Allen, who is playing more on the outside, especially with Kenny Moore going inside. And then Keenan against the blitz. So I like Keenan. He's relatively popular. You know what? I don't want to pin the tail on the wide receiver. I don't know why I even use that thing. Let's put Herbert in for now. I like Herbert. We're going to use CeeDee Lamb. Let's touch that high total tight end. I really do like Tyler Warren against the zone for the Chargers. He's getting a shit ton of targets, right? That's a lot of targets when they need them. They're in a little back and forth game. Oof, that hurts. So Herbert's kind of expensive. CeeDee Lamb's obviously very expensive. What's Dak's price? 65. It's like we go Dak. I think should probably go Dak. Then I want Jefferson. I want one of those two top dogs in cash, Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb. Let's go back to Herbie for the time being. Figure this thing out. Tight ends, obviously Gadsden had a big game last week. Tyler Warren, 20% owned. So that makes sense. We should probably go there. Is that the highest ownership tight ends on the slate? Love Trey McBride. 500 less. We have Rashee Rice. We're not going to play Kelsey. Michael Mayer makes sense. Mason Taylor. What's the props for Tyler Warren? Let's just see where he's at. Tyler Warren. 5 catches, 55. Michael Mayer, 4 catches, 30. I mean, Mayer's got to get work. I just don't think he has near much upside. Let's see what a defense does. Like the Browns or the Bears. Let's go with Bears. 4K. I mean, it puts us on like Chris Moore, one of these wide receivers for Washington. Anybody 4,100? Luke McCaffrey. Not getting a lot of targets, but there's no one else playing with Debo out and Terry McLaurin out. Well, we'll get to that game right now. There we go. Washington, very high team total still with these injuries. That's pretty interesting. Let's refresh, make sure that is where we want to be. That is not the right slate. Yeah, 26.25. So it went down half a point since I refreshed. All right, cool. So we got the most recent data. I don't hate Luke McCaffrey in cash, do we? Let's see where he's at. 3 receptions, 3.5 receptions, 38. I don't hate that. Let's put McCaffrey in there. Luke McCaffrey. And we get the Browns D. I kind of like that a ton. Herbie, Breece Hall, Quishon Judkins, Rashee Rice, Cortland Sutton, CeeDee Lamb. We're going to put that in. No, let's finish the show. ADD here, kicking in 20% Jaden Daniels. So if you're not playing Herbie, you probably want to start with Jaden Daniels in cash games. Let's go through the injuries here for Washington. Washington has obviously Terry McLaurin's out, Deebo Samuel out, stud defensive lineman Dorrance Armstrong. He looked like a beast early on this season. Jonathan Jones is back, so that does help the DBs a little bit, but he is not very good when he was playing. And Sam Cosmi, one of their better run blockers, is back, activated off the IR, should play. So good things for the Commanders' run game. If I'm Dan Quinn, I do not want to get in a shootout with the Dallas Cowboys at full strength here. I think Devontae Turpin's going to be back for them as well. Obviously, CD's back. Trayvon Diggs is out on the other side. Offensive lineman, I guess he's kind of a backup. Trevor Keegan is out. So pretty healthy for the Cowboys. Trayvon Diggs, I don't know. I don't think he's that good, so I'm not super concerned. I don't think that changes anything for me. I tell myself the Commanders want to establish a run here, so a good spot for Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, who did see his route participation go up the past 3 weeks, every single week. So that's good to see. I think they got to feed him. They got to use the RPO with Jaden Daniels, but it's like, do they want Jaden Daniels to run that much coming off, sketchy situations with his knee? I don't know. The Cowboys, though, on defense at Dallas in the Dome here, all zone, pretty much all cover all cover 3 with a little bit of cover 2. They do not blitz very much, but do pressure opposing quarterbacks. For the Commanders, a ton of single high safety and a little bit of cover 3. Obviously, single high safety there too. Decent blitz. I'm not going to lie to you. Handicap-wise, I had no idea. Zach Ertz is obviously the safety blanket. I guess Luke McCaffrey a little bit, but if they're playing man coverage, Luke McCaffrey's not going to beat. They do is play zone. So yes, Luke McCaffrey makes sense. Should find the soft spot of those zone. He's not going to run deep routes. That's probably Jalen Lane, maybe Chris Moore. Not interested in that situation a ton, but I do think for cash safety, Luke McCaffrey's a guy there. So I do like this lineup a good bit in cash. Commanders, again, ton of single high. That is going to be advantage CeeDee Lamb, and then Pickens and Ferguson versus blitz. Obviously, small sample size handicapping data this year with CeeDee Lamb playing, I guess, 2.5 games. I think it was week 3. He got hurt against the Bears. Maybe that was week 4, but whatever. You get what I'm saying. So Jaden Daniels, definitely cash viable. Dak's cash viable. I do not think this game shoots out to a total of 54, but both these defenses are struggling. So my take in GPPs is I'm going to fade this game for the most part or get small pieces of lower ownership like Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, 15%. I think he closes closer to the 10% range. There's just too much ownership at the running back spots with guys like Judkins, Breece Hall, Jonathan Taylor even, and then Javonte Williams drawing 20%. I think JCM's actually in a good spot. Someone I'm usually not interested in playing, but the Washington Commanders have to run the football. CeeDee Lamb, it's absolute stud, so it is what it is. You could pick on all these cornerbacks. Sandstrom, I guess, would be the main culprit on the inside. So if CeeDee's going back to the slot, love this for him. You could play Pickens, you could play McCaffrey. If you're stacking up this game, you could play Ertz. Ertz is probably cash game valuable at 3,800. Ferguson, probably not with CD back, but, he's had pretty much a good game every single game this season. Not interested in the defense. And the last game of the week, the Cardinals have a relatively one of the lowest, so 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth lowest team total. No Kyler Murray is going to hurt. DeMarco's out for the Cardinals and Kyler Murray. That's pretty much it. So not too bad there. I don't think Kyler Murray being out. This offense moved the football against a very good Colts defense last week who did not have Kenny Moore. So not the Colts at full strength like we're used to seeing that I was kind of just talking up a little bit when I was at that game. For the Packers, Luke Van Ness is out. He's a stud edge rusher there, good against a run, good against a pass rush, or good at the pass rush. Devontae Wyatt is out. Christian Watson's not going to be back this week. So decent losses to the pass rush with Devontae Wyatt and Luke Van Ness out. So I don't hate this spot for 1% Jacoby Brissett at 4,500. If you put him in a lineup, you can afford a lot. Josh Jacobs, Pierre Strong was activated. I saw that, and Jacobs was pretty limited all week, but full participant on Friday. I think Jacobs is fine, good to go. The dude doesn't leave the field. If you want to play him, it's a good spot. The Cardinals pretty much play all zone, cover 3 and cover 4. A little bit of too high, so they do mix in that too high with that cover 2 with the cover 4. That's going to be a big boost to Mr. Matthew Golden and Josh Jacobs versus the cover two, or the two high safeties, I should say. Matthew Golden, 7%. I like that. He's getting more involved every single week. Obviously, coming off the bye, was very involved last week. 4,700 for a game breaker type of player like him. I like that. Marvin Harrison, pass concussion protocol. He's going to be sub 5%, I'm sure. Romeo Doubs, I'm just not a Romeo Doubs guy. He basically has to score 2 touchdowns to have a 20-point game. Can that happen here? Certainly. But yeah, I'd rather trust guys like Josh Jacobs, Matthew Golden, Tucker Kraft, even against cover 4 is not a bad spot. For the Cardinals, it's very hard to handicap with a small sample size in Jacoby Brissett here, but with Kyler, like the way this offense was designed against the cover 2 and cover 3 that we're going to see from the Packers, they pretty much all play zone. That's going to be a massive upgrade to Trey McBride. And yeah, I like Marvin Harrison just in general with his size against these smaller Green Bay DBs, but not a priority play for any means. But if you want to double stack Brissett, you can certainly do that. I just think Bam Knight and Michael Carter, the 2 running backs for the Cardinals, how do you run the ball? So this could be a game where we see, as long as the Packers move the football, which they should, this could be like a 40 pass attempt game for Jacoby Brissett, because the Cardinals are playing for something. They're certainly in the mix for their division, so I like that. So don't hate that for Jacoby Brissett. Tucker Kraft, Trey McBride, solid defense. Yeah, he could play either one of these. Getting a phone call. And that's that. So good luck to everybody this week. We're going to submit this cash game. Justin Herbert, Breece Hall, Quinshon Judkins, Rashee Rice, Courtland Sutton, CeeDee Lamb, Tyler Warren, Luke McCaffrey, Browns defense. There we go. Good luck to everybody this week. Thank you for tuning in, and we will most likely catch you next week.